death row.
Like we always do about this time.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass!
You're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
There's a little snake in the grass.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
No forget Jesus, people!
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I'm back.
Who the fuck is that guy? Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
I would like to introduce...
Welcome to the MMA for Money Show, episode 56. In this show, we will review UFC Vegas 11, Covington versus Woodley, and preview UFC 253, ADESANYA versus COSTA. I am Bob Voss, your favorite cards rat at MMA State of Mind, here with Real Mike, Mike Copenhaver at Don't Cope Just Win, and Mikey Gilman at Mikey Gills. That's Gills with a Z. Also follow the show on Twitter at MMA for Money Show. Real Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm doing a little better if there wasn't such a controversy in last weekend's UFC that Mikey and I will sure get into a little bit later. But I just want to say, first off, happy birthday to the mentor and legend MMA for Money himself, Prime, the legend, Jay. I love you a lot, bro. I can't thank you enough for all that you've done. Also, your father, I love him so much. Thank you for taking care of him and your mom and everyone back in Newark, New Jersey. God bless, and hope you have a great meal.
Mikey Gills, how about you?
Oh, what's up, sir? Nothing, just here to talk some DraftKings. I figured Saquon Barkley's out for the year. Betting fantasy sports can't get much worse, so let's go.
Well, you know what? We are officially on our new format-ish. 3 of us breaking down fights for you. This is the first go of it. We had a little bit taste of it tail end of last show. This is how things will be going forward to break down fights for you. 3 somewhat unique perspectives, sometimes conflict, sometimes agreement. You'll find out. The MMA for Money Show is live right now on Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube. If you're watching us live currently, you're watching on one of those platforms. If you're not watching live, you can listen after the fact on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, RSS feed. We are also on YouTube. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're also on full-length shows, and smaller tidbits throughout the week are there after the fact. So please comment, share, spread the word on the YouTube, and by all means rate and review the Apple Podcast. That does wonders. It raises our stock. It's more people listening. If you enjoy the show, they'll enjoy the show. We're going right into a very quick review of UFC Vegas Covington versus Woodley. We will pause just for a minute going over how our bets did and also how DraftKings did and the main event before we shoot forward to the upcoming pay-per-view. Now, first off, Tyson Nam won with a round 2 TKO right cross to ground and pound over Jerome Rivera. Derek Minner busted everybody's parlay with a round 1 guillotine. Andre Ewell got a decision win. It was split decision. Randy Costa completely demolished Journey Newsom in the first round with a head kick followed up by punches. You don't mess with that, Zohan. Sarah Alpar got her wedding pictures straight ruined by Jessica Rose Clark with a round 3 TKO knees and punches that went 2 minutes longer than it needed to in a fight that should have stopped. But terrible refereeing. We would go over that, but every other show is going over that, and that's not what you listen to us for. Damon Jackson got a 3rd round guillotine over Mirsad Bektik, the amazing supernatural athlete that likes to give away fights in the 3rd round. David Dvorak beat Jordan Espinoza by unanimous decision. Myra Bueno Silva got that quick 1st round armbar. Kevin Holland won a decision. That one very much I was on the opposite side for. I thought Stewart pulled that one out. Mackenzie Dern threw a terrible high kick, slipped. Brenda Marcos jumped onto her in guard. And then eventually Dern got the armbar, as she's wont to do. Next up, we will break this down a little bit. We were all talking about this one because this was one of the bets for the card. Johnny Walker was a -120 favorite versus Ryan Spann +105. We had a bet on Ryan Spann, which was looking phenomenal early. Rocked him and knocked him down twice. Spann to Walker, that is. And then Walker got the 1st round TKO with elbows and hammer fist, about 75% of which were to the back of the head. Obviously, we did not feel too good about that, but honestly, I want to first throw this to Real Mike, mainly because watching this fight played out exactly the way that he texted me it was going to happen and how he broke it down when he hopped in on the show at the end. So we're going to start with Real Mike. Real Mike, talk about this fight. I know obviously it was hurt. We lost a unit on this one, but it was more than that. You were 100% right on this fight, and you basically got out of there because of some tomfoolery. Yes, I said tomfoolery. So Johnny Walker, Ryan Spann, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's what's so disappointing is that I pretty much called it to a T. Like I told Mikey, you know, before the fight even happened. I mean, if the odds were if Johnny Walker was so good and it was going to be such a sure thing, then why are the odds so even? That's because it was more of a coin toss and his chin was suspect, like I called it. I mean, watching him stumble and rumble and fumble all across the ring when he got hit by Spann, and then have Spann be so stupid and still going for takedowns, and then, you know, put himself in the position to then be hit illegally in the back of the head. There's two different types of illegal hits. There's 12-6 elbows that aren't illegal, and then there's just illegal strikes to the back of the head, and then deeming the ones that are only behind the ear zone that are then legal. You sure as shit cannot go back and tell me that some of those fucking monkey slam fists that came down, that rained down, were not on the back of the head. So fuck off with all that. I could take a loss normally when it's a loss, head kick to the head when you're standing, guy gets knocked out, guy gets armbarred. It's very clear as day. This one was just absolute robbery for the show. Because we play with real money, you know, it just sucks because if some of you guys bet that, I personally take it personal when I lose you guys some units, but it's all good. We'll be back, and we'll let Mikey get into it.
Yeah, so we had Johnny Walker in our DraftKings lineup. So I don't know what either of you guys are talking about. Every strike landed clean to me. So those perfectly legal strikes landed us 108 points on DraftKings. I was pretty happy about it. But what I wasn't happy about is I had to clear up the storage from my phone from all of the angry texts that I got from Real Mike. After it happened, just one after another, like, what is going on? But yeah, no, it was a little bit of shenanigans, but hey, I'll take it. Let's go.
Well, that's the great thing, honestly, about this show. Even when we lose, we win. Because if you would have played our DraftKings, you would have got some crazy points right there because it's a first round finish. And if you would have bet with us, well, we only lost one unit that night. We got screwed a little bit later on, in my opinion. We'll get there, but
yeah, it's like white men can't jump. Sometimes when you win, you actually lose. You know, something like that.
Exactly. That's basically science. Like, I mean,
it's so factual.
I'm your boss. So next up, Khamzat Chimaev, who we were big on the disrespect in this fight. We definitely thought it was going to happen. A little worried about Meerschaert's chin, but hey, whatever. He's the biggest opponent that Chimaev has ever fought. And then Chimaev just basically just walked across, punched him one time, and finished the fight. So we don't need to look back on it too much until we do a little breakdown of the DraftKings, which we'll do at the end. But so I guess he's the real deal, or is he? Because Meerschaert is Meerschaert. So yes, again, I'm still doubting this phenom who's been hit 3 times in 3 fights, but we'll talk about that more later. Donald Cerrone and Nico Price got a draw here. Now, my bet for the card was for Nico Price to get this, and honestly, he looked phenomenal early. He was doing like a ridiculous amount of standing elbows and just causing a tremendous amount of damage on Cowboy Cerrone, but he also liked to just completely stand like this, which after a while is obviously going to find an eye, an orbital, a pupil somewhere. And it found there a couple times, and he lost a point there from eye poke and would have won the fight clearly if he didn't get that point taken away. Judging by the judges' scorecard, well, no, it would have been a split decision because one of the judges had it 29-27 for Cerrone somehow, but that would have gone that way. So that's a push because we had a bet on that one. So it's break even there on this one. So, but I was impressed with Nico Price. Cerrone honestly didn't look as bad as I thought he would. He was more competitive than I thought. I wasn't sure he was gonna be able to take the type of damage that Price was putting on him. I was actually very impressed. He was able to take that kind of damage, but I think about Cerrone is he is for sure less than he was, but it's not as fallen off a hill as so many guys. I mean, his defense isn't quite as good as it once was. He dips his hands down a little bit too low and he gets shots and takes shots, but he's definitely not as bad as I thought he was at this point. So, I mean, kudos to him, even though Dana says he's going to have a conversation with him. But we'll this time go with Mikey Gills first on this one. Mikey Gills, Cerrone versus Price, the draw, the fight, the performances.
Just watching it live, I counted how long it took Nico Price to gas out. It was 80 seconds on the dot before he had it off. And you said, I think you just said one of the judges gave him the first round. That makes sense because if you're totaling the damage, Nico Price suffered more in that first round. That's the argument anyway. But no, Nico Price, $8,500 was 75 points through 150 significant strikes landed. So that even without a win, 75 points is something you'll take. He scored better than other fighters on this card that did win, like David Dvorak with 64, but I mean, we'll get into all that. He landed 50 strikes in about the first minute, and then after that, he just kind of did the zombie walk to him. So, you'll say could have done better, but whatever.
Real Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the fight was actually really fun to watch. I mean, if you like defense or stuff like that and striking, that was not a fight for you. They were just letting them beat the shit out of each other. They did not care about defense. There was nothing, spectacular in the striking realm of in that sense. But offensively, it was a lot of fun. Blood-wise and gore, it was fun. I was stoked to see Cowboy back in a fight that he was competitive in. I really didn't think that he was going to be able to withstand the 80-second storm that Mikey Gills counted back there. But he was right. He literally gassed himself so fast going for a kill. He probably thought that he was going to damage Cowboy just like we did and finish him a little bit faster. And when it didn't happen, he realized he was still in there with an OG. So it was just nice to see Cowboy somewhat competitive. The fight being a draw because of the eye poke, that's what I called it to my buddy next to me. But it should have been Price.
So obviously the overall, we'll talk about the main event, but the overall betting we're camping that is -1 unit with that draw and the loss earlier on the card. So -1 unit, but that's okay. We've been on a bit of a streak now. So at some point you got to get a little bit closer to even sometimes, but I'm going to jump to Real Mike first because I don't have much to say about the main event. Colby Covington won against Tyron Woodley in pretty much one-way traffic and eventually getting a TKO rib injury round 5. I mean, we pretty much all said how this was going to go for the most part. Tyrone's very inactive at this point, and Covington is all forward action and likes to pin people up against the cage. And he did just that for the majority of 5 rounds. So Real Mike, Covington's performance versus Tyron Woodley.
Covington's performance was actually, he's amazing, man. I can't, you can love him or hate him, for whatever you want, but he's a really, really good fighter. Defensively, now we're going to talk about some defense. It was such a polar opposite of the Cerrone versus Price fight. When they stepped in there, Colby's number 1 goal was to not be damaged. You could see that was his entire game plan. He did a great job avoiding T Wood's very limited volume number of strikes. We called it last week on the show that T Wood would be just dormant. He's like an old volcano that once was told about great stories that it used to erupt, and then it's really just a soft little subtle thing that gives off little hot springs on the side of it, and people camp next to the place now. So T Wood should retire. He's just an old volcano, dormant and stale as ever.
Mikey Gills, I want you to go right into this main event, and then after you talk about the main event, you can go right into reviewing how the DraftKings lineup, as much as it changes, because as we've always said, big asterisk on those with all the cancellations and stuff. It's a fluid card. So main event and how DraftKings did.
Yeah, I mean, just to top off whatever you guys were saying about the main event right there was this was the textbook definition of dragging someone into deep waters and drowning them. Not the highest volume output in the first couple rounds, but it was increasing. But then in the 4th round, Colby turns it on, lands 113 strikes to Tyron Woodley's 2. And, I know the fight didn't end until the next round, but really it ended right there with that round. You could see once Tyron Woodley was covered in blood and bleeding, his will was completely gone. But, getting right into DraftKings, we actually would have had a really great card this week if it wasn't for TJ Laramie just finding a way to lose this fight. Because
idiot TJ.
He was our most expensive play on this card. He was $9,200. He was our lock. Like, you put that into your lineup, that's your sure thing. You file it away. You don't even worry about it. His only way that he was going to lose this fight was to go right up to Minner and put his head into a guillotine, and he did it. He went right and did it. So we got
round 1. Round 1.
0 points. 0. Do you know how frustrating that is on DraftKings? Every time that you reload a page and you go to look at it and it says 0, and you're like, all right, cool, I still have 5 fighters left. But you don't have 5 fighters. Yeah, so that's my TJ Laramie. Sorry for the night. Don't want to talk about him again. Mackenzie Dern, we had a little talk last week about like how good was her striking. Well, apparently it's so good that not only can it miss by 3 feet, it can take your opponent down with it in the process. Mackenzie Dern's amazing. Going right on, David Dvorak. I wish he would have scored a little bit more. He had 13 finishes out of his last 14 fights. I was really, really hoping that he could get a finish in this one. He didn't. Kind of a lesser striking affair, 64 points total. Wanted a little bit more out of that one, can't lie. We already talked about Nico Price's 150 significant strikes really saved him from not getting the decision. 75 points for $8,500. not the worst thing, but also, again, not the best. Johnny Walker, my boy, clean as a whistle win, nothing else to talk about. And then going right into our Tyron Woodley pick, which I had a couple of people asking me about this. 22 points to over 4.5 rounds. He was a punt pick. I didn't expect him to win, but when it comes to different strategies on picking DraftKings cards, you either want to get a couple of lower price guys that you really believe in, or you get 5 guys that you're sure will win, and then you get like the cheapest guy on the card. In this one, it was Tyron Woodley, and I don't put guys together like that. I don't like to stack. And so for certain cards, I had Colby Covington top card, and certain ones I had the TJ Laramie top cards. The Covington cards obviously ended up doing a lot better, but not for this one. We went 3 of 6 on the night for 371.5 points. The worst card we've had since I've been on the show. I personally feel a little bit robbed because it should have been something in the area of about 480 with a TJ Laramie win. But Derek Minner is the devil, and I never want to speak of him again.
Well, absolute worst, even if he ended up losing a decision, but it went for 3 rounds. He could have scored you at least 30 to 50 points just on basic striking, even if in a losing affair. And that would put, about 420, which puts us right at about our average. So, but no, he dove right into. Sorry, I still can't believe that, dude. Derek, I'm pretty sure we talked so much smack about Derek Minner because he is the ultimate fluke for being in the UFC, in my opinion. But he's there. So I don't know. We're going to talk about more fun stuff, which is a pay-per-view coming up. Yes, we finally have another pay-per-view. And although most of it is, we're back to Abu Dhabi. So not quite Fight Island because it's a pay-per-view, but basically Fight Island. So there should be no cancellations, wink, wink, on anyone testing positive, wink, wink, until way after. So we're good because Fight Island doesn't test positive. If you're not watching the video, I'm trying to wink. I'm terrible at it. So it also looks like I'm probably getting smacked in the back of the head, but that's okay. We're going to go right into 253, Adesanya versus Costa, starting with the very first fight on the card. Khadis Abrakhimov, -160 versus Danilo Marquez, +140. I'm going to throw this one off pretty early, mainly from the fact that I have deep-seated issues against Ibrahimov with how he fought against Ed Herman and just his overall everything. So I desperately want to find ways to pick Marquez at the +140, but I can't quite justify it yet for a lot of reasons. But there's a couple fighters, actually at least 2 on this card, that I know I'm going to downplay quite a bit, and Ibrahimov is one of them. So do not listen to my opinion on this fight, and I'm going to jump right to real Mike for Ibrahimov versus Marquez. Mike, how you feeling? Who you liking? At very least, give quick picks. Otherwise, a small breakdown.
With this over in the Middle East, and I think the judging might have a play in it. Abrakhimov.
Yeah, going right into it. I really wanted to talk about Danilo Marquez for a second. Just Mike, you might appreciate. I'm sorry, Bob. You might appreciate this just from you're from Chicago. Yep. You ever seen Wayne's World 2, the gas station attendant scene where he's like, "Come on, can we do a little bit better than this?" Like that's kind of how I feel about this fight, Marquez.
Seriously.
He's 9-2, making his UFC debut. He's 3-2 in his last 5. He hasn't fought since February of 2018. And the 9-2 record is the most fraudulent thing I've ever seen. I'm going to read you a couple of quick records of his last 5 opponents in order. So, like I said, in order: 5-5-1. He won that by decision. I'm not kidding about this next one. 0-21. He won that one by armbar. That was his opponent's record.
How was that sanctioned?
I have no idea. But 0-21. 14-7, he lost by a decision. So if you have somewhat of a good record, you're going to lose. 6-14, he won that one, and then a 7-7, he lost by first round KO. This guy's horrible. I'm going to pick Ibrahimov. He may not be that great, but he's not altogether awful either. And apparently against this guy, that's enough. So.
See, remember when they're talking about, all these fighters want to fight, whereas we keep throwing in all these warm bodies. Moving on. Jeff Hughes, who I actually was a little bit impressed with. I liked his boxing, other than the fact that he doesn't have a lot of power, which at heavyweight it's a bit rough. He's +240 versus Juan Espino, -280. Juan Espino is basically everything better than Jeff Hughes is. He has faced similar guys and finished them with extreme prejudice, whereas Jeff Hughes goes to incredibly close, squeaking by decisions, some split decision wins, some losses. So I'm going with Espino. I just think he's the better faster version of Hughes. Obviously, minus 280 can't do much with that, but my pick there is Espino. Mikey Gills, jump in on Hughes versus Espino.
Well, Jeff Hughes, 10-3, 4 KO, 1 sub, 6'2", 77-inch reach. He's on a 2-fight losing streak with a no contest against Todd Duffy in the middle. He hasn't won a fight since July of 2018 after that kind of what I considered an unimpressive showing on the Dana White Contender Series fight. Really patient on the fighter, doesn't throw a ton of volume, wings, hooks. He's a training partner of Stipe, which might explain why he's in here, that and the need for fighters. Facing Juan Espino, 9-1, 6'4", 80-inch reach. Espino, grappling wizard. He's won 9 straight since he came back in 2017. He had a really long break in his career, 2011 to 2017. He's the world grappling champion. I have a couple of questions about that because I know what an NCAA champion is or a jiu-jitsu champion. The world grappling, I'm not exactly sure what the umbrella is for that, but he's dealt with a lot of injuries, preventing him from fighting for a while. Espino at 9,100, he's my pick. I think he wins this fight pretty easily. Submission. Jeff Hughes doesn't do anything particularly well, and he seems kind of like the perfect opponent to get a tough win or a win.
Real Mike.
Yeah, and I agree completely with Mikey. I think Espino is just going to absolutely just dominate Hughes. Hughes is to me something that Bob picks up on in the morning on his route every day. Just complete trash, and he's going to get just destroyed by Espino, in my opinion.
Next up, William Nightmare Knight. I'm sorry, I got to take a little minute there. I got to give a little touche on that nickname because it's spelled Nightmare, like his last name Knight. It's like just a little touche. I appreciate that because there's so many bad and just utterly awful nicknames in MMA. I'm gonna give him this one. So the Nightmare. I'm done. Plus 140 versus Alexa Coomer, minus 160. Quick look at Coomer. I don't know much about him, full disclosure, but I know he's a finisher. I've seen William Knight fight. He is a brutal finisher who will go for the kill. I like him at underdog money, but another one of those situations, I don't know his opponent well enough to want to put money on him. And at least from what I've seen from Knight, I think he's got a shot. And maybe if that price goes up, I might have to change. So I'll look more into Coomer. But at least of what I've seen, he doesn't look that fantastic. And Knight is fairly brutal. So Real Mike, Nightmare versus Kamur.
Yeah, man, I'm a Nightmare fan on this one. Close to being a bet for me if I didn't already pick one. Still might be personally off of the show's picks. I think that Knight is just he's brutal, man. I mean, the way that he finishes people, the way that he sends energy forth from the darkness to destroy his the people he's fighting. He's a monster, and I really like Knight here. I think that the dog money is a gift. And I'll let Mikey elaborate a little bit more, but I know Mikey's right along with me.
Yeah, for sure. Starting off with Alexa Kamer, he's 6-0 with 5 knockouts, 6'1", 75-inch reach, going off for $8,600 on DraftKings. He's 1-0 since coming to the UFC on Dana White's Contender Series. When you watch his fights, he's more of a technical striker than Knight is. But my problem with him, especially in this fight, is he likes to get in close and do kind of crazy, wild stuff. Like you'll see him in his fight tapes. I've seen it in several fights of his. He'll even throw like high kicks from very close to people just to kind of mix it up and keep his opponents off guard. Really likes to hang out in the pockets. It's a little bit too long. You're going to have a problem with that because on the other side, we've got William Knight, 8-1, 7 knockouts, 5'10", 73-inch reach. Just an absolute murderous power puncher, this guy. He's won 2 fights in a row. His last fight was on the Dana White Contender Series just a month ago, so he's fresh. He's ready to roll. He's not probably cutting too much weight compared, what I meant to say by that was he just cut it a month ago. He's probably still in that area. But a guy like this, he's got 5 first-round finishes. But the thing that I like about him is he also has 2 third-round knockouts. So this is a guy that keeps that power late. Think of other UFC fighters like a Derek Lewis, like somebody that even if it's not going great for you, like on the Dana White Contender Series fight, he still can draw on that power. So William Knight for me at 7,600. I think he's going to win this fight by knockout. I think he gets it in the first or second round. Should be good points. 7,600. Let's go.
And obviously keep an eye out on the separate Twitter handles. This is where you have to follow all of us because obviously this won't be an official pick and or bet for the show, but if you keep an eye on us on Twitter, some of those get posted out. I know for sure my final bets get posted out at earliest on Friday, at latest Saturday morning, with all of the ones from the show and any additional ones that I like. I don't always add more, but this is one of the ones that's flirting with the line, and one that I might go with, especially if it stays intact and the odds stay where they are or actually get better. Next up, Shane Young, -130 versus, bear with me, Luoduvit Klein, +130. I'm going to consider that I nailed that.
Killed it.
I don't know very many Slovakian names or how to pronounce them, but I'm just going to call him Klein from here on out, +110. Shane Young, I've been very impressed with in the UFC. This will be the first city kickboxing guy fighting on this card. There's several, so he's just going to be the first one. So going into this, I've heard ADESANYA interviewed, and they've basically self-quarantined with all of the guys competing and a few training partners, and just had kind of like a micro camp training up into this. That's also why there has been as many interviews, and Shane Young has been part of that. I think his striking is all around better. Obviously, Klein is a boxer and has fairly crisp boxing. I like the all around game more of Shane Young, and I think he has more tools to work with. Obviously, this is a fairly closely lined fight, but I do see him getting a decision. I don't think it's going to be a finish, but I like Young here by decision. Now I'm going to go with. See, this is the thing. I'm trying my best to go every other, but too much stuff is going on that I'm starting to mislabel who I went with next. So I'm gonna go with Real Mike first, because roll the dice. Because my notes are up right about there, so I see bottom corner. So I'm gonna go with the bottom corner, my bottom corner, right about there. Real Mike.
Yeah, this is going to be a good fight, man. Shane Young, he's super aggressive, really good striker, really well rounded. Ludovic Klein, I like him too, man. I like his boxing. He's really sharp and his defense is crisp, and I'm just a big fan of that. But that in MMA doesn't always work out, because Boston Salmon can tell you that boxing and MMA don't mix. Get that ass beat real fast. So I don't really know 100% on this one. I think the line is a little baity towards Shane Young, and so if I had to pick gun to my head, I like Klein.
Mikey
Yeah.
Gills.
Just moving in, let's start off with Shane Young, 13-4, 6 knockouts, 4 subs. This guy's a finisher, man. Came into the UFC under the kind of harsh circumstances. Had to fight Alexander Volkanovski on his debut. You know, that's a tough out. But he's won 2 straight since then. Not against the greatest competition. He beat Austin Arnett, but in the UFC, who hasn't? I beat Roland Dye, who's 12-9. So, you know, Shane Young, he looks all right. He's not the most impressive to me. You know, he loves to bang. He's a very hittable guy. The one thing that I really don't like about him coming into this fight, he hasn't fought since February of 2019. So that's a bit of a layoff. Going against a guy
only
like
a year and a half. It's only a year and a half.
Look, I'm just saying. But now he's going against Ludovic Klein. Is that pronunciation work? Ludovit? Ludovit? All right, sure. Anyway, 16-2, 7 knockouts, 8 subs. Both of these guys are finishers. There's no price on DraftKings for this fight yet, so we'll get into that at the end. But this guy, he's won 7 in a row, all by stoppage. A very aggressive style. Likes to use his boxing to set up his kicks really well. If you go on this guy's highlight reel, watch a couple of his fights, this dude just has the worst, craziest head kick knockouts that you're going to see. He's a lot more active than Young is. He's had 3 fights since Young's last one. And it's not like this is some washed up, like Eastern European guy that they're just throwing in at the last second. This is a 25-year-old legit prospect, 16-2. Just based on everything that I've seen, Klein should be a popular play on DraftKings with his knockout ability. His price isn't up yet, but if he's at a good dog value, he's going to be hard to say no to. This fight really is a short notice versus ring rust issue. So I'm going to take the super aggressive striker who fights a lot. Shane Young can get hit, and I think he's going to in this one. Ludovic Klein, let's go.
Amen.
Next up, there's a little thing we've been talking about recently. Disrespect. No, I'm kidding. This is not going to be a bet here, but I can make an argument, and I'm going to make my argument. Diego Sanchez is a +525, biggest underdog on the card. Underdog versus Jake Matthews, -750. Jake Matthews is like the one-time phenom. We all thought this kid was going to be the next thing at lightweight and then eventually at welterweight. He had a few hiccups to people that he shouldn't lose to. He's better than them, but has lost them. I don't know. I guess maybe not Kevin Lee. I think Kevin Lee's probably still better than him. But this is I said even before we recorded the show, I said to the guys, this fight itself is prime for a Diego Sanchez being beat to the point that his face is falling off and then getting a third round guillotine victory over Jake Matthews. It's Jake Matthews has a tendency to throw in sloppy takedowns where he leaves his neck. He's been finished that way in the past. I'm not saying, hey, let's all bet Diego Sanchez at plus 525. No, I'm not. I'm really not. One thing I am saying is that Diego Sanchez inside the distance is plus 1365, which is a huge number. Something that I might throw a little pocket change at just to make this fight interesting, because these odds obviously are not very interesting outside of that. Matthews should win. He's younger, faster, stronger, bigger, longer, more handsome. Like he basically has every single category in this fight. I mean, except experience, but at some point when you have enough experience, it just turns into damage. So, I mean, I guess unless Diego Sanchez comes out as the Nightmare as opposed to the Dream or the Lionheart or whatever nickname he's rocking this week, and if his random trainer that has him do like extreme acrobatic yoga with him in his back room, then maybe. But as of right now, no. And I know that's a long-winded way for such a big underdog, but like I said, those odds on the finish might be something I toy around with. But in general, Matthews should smash. So Mikey Gills, Jake Matthews, Diego Sanchez.
It's kind of like, have you ever seen that movie Rounders with Matt Damon, where he's playing the judges game and it doesn't even matter what cards he has. He just can see the opponent and he knows he's going to win, so he can do it anyway. That's kind of how this fight is. Jake Matthews is Matt Damon. He's going to beat Diego Sanchez.
He kind of looks like Matt Damon too, a young Matt Damon.
A little bit. Okay, all right. We'll get Ben Affleck in the crowd. We get some star power here. But Jake Matthews, 16-4, 4 knockouts, 7 subs, 5-1 since 2016. Had a loss to Anthony Rocco Martin in the middle of that, but I mean, he was looking good in that fight. He knocked Anthony Rocco Martin down. Since then, he's won 2 straight. Last fought in February, beating Emil Meck. For me, Matthews is a no-brainer in this fight, but the problem is on DraftKings, he's costing $9,400. And I think at $9,400, he's probably going to win the fight. But at that, you can probably get the same point value for hundreds less with like an Espino or Rydell or Espino or Rydell. Sanchez, nothing more than a punt play. I mean, what you were just talking about inside the distance, something like that. But on DraftKings, I would leave Sanchez alone. Matthews, if you can afford him and you like something, if you don't like the other expensive options, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Diego Sanchez, man, he can't keep getting away and getting lucky as much as he has. This is the time. No way. There's no fucking way. No fucking way that Jake Matthews is losing to Diego Sanchez. There's just no fucking goddamn way. This is one of those.
Now I have to bet the other
this
side.
This is one of those.
You're tempting it.
This is one of those parlay busters, though, that comes along, dude, and people just cannot fucking believe that this could actually really happen. I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. It's like lightning striking. It's like you getting lucky with a 10 at the bar. It's not happening for you, kid. You're just not good looking enough. It's not happening for Diego Sanchez. He is going to get his ass completely beat. Jake Matthews, bigger, stronger, younger, faster, going to push him up against the cage, beat the fuck out of his body, drop him to the floor, and just finish him, dude. He's going to be just withered and weathered and just beat down like just a pulp. There's no way Diego the Nightmare Sanchez ever finishes this fight unconscious. No way.
There you go. Let me put a scenario out there for you, because I 100% agree. 100%. Jake Matthews comes right at Diego. Well, Diego Sanchez tries to come against Jake Matthews. It's not going to happen. He's just not big enough and assuming enough. Jake Matthews lands a few counters, gets him backing up against the cage, because this is past when Diego can constantly move forward. He's not physically prime enough to be able to do that. Backs against the cage. Jake Matthews shoots in, takes him out, and I'm just talking like beats the Everlove and everything out of him. Like I'm talking, it's a 10-8. Like you're like, ref, why won't you stop it? It's like that Alpar fight. Just like, why won't you stop it? This is awful. It's like he's bleeding everywhere. This is so awful. And this is also not the first time that Jake Matthews has done this, where after the first round, man, dude, he's so tired. It's so tired. And Abu Dhabi is so hot. It's so hot. No, I'm just messing around. Like, obviously, Jake Matthews should absolutely kill, but I don't know. Seems like one of those ones that you tempt fate a little bit too much with Diego Sanchez, and he's not going to quit fighting MMA until he's on a stretcher and has like 7 fights that he's lost in a row, and then he's going to fight in bare knuckle and fight another 10, and then he's going to end up on your regional scene at like 50-50 and just fighting bums. So I mean, I hope that doesn't happen to Diego Sanchez, but it looks like it's going that way. But hey, he's got Stephan Bonner in the corner, and they did psychedelics and saw UFOs together, so that's a party. And if you haven't seen that article, by all means, check it out. I'm pretty sure it all stems from a James Lynch interview that has become a bunch of random articles. But apparently that happened between those two. So conspiracies abound. Next up, Brad Riddell is minus 330 versus Alex De Silva plus 270. I talked to the guys earlier before all of this that this is one of the few times that I'm like, man, I'm just going to look into these fights before I see the odds. I'm going to look into these fights before I see the odds. So I'm completely unbiased. That way, if I get a good underdog or something like that, I'm all in. Because that's usually my issue sometimes. I'm like, oh, this guy should win, but he's a huge underdog. I shouldn't go with that. I loved Brad Riddell here. I'm like, this is going to be so great. Okay, this is going to be maybe close to an even fight. I was way off. They already have it at minus 330. He is minus 330 versus De Silva's plus 270. That's about right. I thought I was going to get a sneak in here. I'm like, this is where I lined him at. But I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to beat the odds, beat the bookie here. Way off. So this is the second of the City Kickboxing guys fighting. I like Brad Riddell here a lot. He's become one of my newer favorite fighters. I think he's got a shot to do, I would say big things, but I don't necessarily see him as championship level or anything like that. But he's a serviceable fighter that I think can get a clear win here against Alex De Silva. So Real Mike, Brad Riddell, Alex De Silva.
Yeah, man, Brad Riddell, I mean, I can't say enough about his striking and just like once again, defense and offensively, he's just super sound. I really like him a lot. I wish the number wasn't so high on him, but obviously the odds makers see kind of the same thing that we see in him. I think that he should roll here. He could definitely be a parlay piece if you wanted to get crazy this card and add Mr. Jake Matthews in there and then add a few others. But I just think that Riddell is the real deal. I think he's a great example of a martial artist. And I just hope that he rolls here.
Yeah, Brad Riddell, 8-1, 5 knockouts, 5'7", 71-inch reach. He's won 5 in a row, 2 in the UFC. Last beating Magomed Mustafayev, who was no kind of scrub. Like you guys said, he's rock solid on the feet, has really good takedown defense. Going up against Alex De Silva, 21-2, 13 knockouts, 7 subs, 5'10", 73-inch reach. 3-2 in his last 5. He's coming off of a win, but he hasn't fought in a year. More experience, but a lot of that, when you checked out his record, it seems like a lot of that was fluff fighting down in Brazil. Like he was a younger guy fighting a lot. You never really know exactly what you're getting in that. Brad Riddell going off for 9,200 on DraftKings, which I actually think is a really good play for him against Alex De Silva. Like a guy who's going to come at him and he's going to be, pretty aggressive moving towards him. I think Brad Riddell can work him over. And at $9,200, he's one of the best plays up at the higher end. He averages 85 points on DraftKings over the last 2 fights, but in this particular fight, you figure if he can get a lot of striking in with a lot of with a knockout or a finish something late, and you could be looking at a guy that could get you 110, 120 points, something like that. So for me, Brad Riddell rolls here, better striker. I think he's going to be a good play.
So next up, we have Hakeem Dawodu, I've heard it pronounced either way, plus 100 versus Zabira Tukhugov, minus 120 of issue with Conor McGregor fame. Hakeem Dawodu. Gonna go with Hakeem from now on. Just gonna go with Hakeem. He is overvalued, not just here, but in my opinion, as a fighter. He had a mini viral moment when he was in the WSOF when he did a Hayukin, and it's become a thing. And I don't think he's panned out after that. He got a lot of attention because of that, and then got some wins, but also losses. Lost his UFC debut early by Danny Henry. Yes, Danny Henry. And also has a win over Austin Arnett, but as Mikey Gills said earlier in the show, win over Austin Arnett, who doesn't have win over Austin Arnett. And he has enough split decisions in there that he could be a 500 fighter in the UFC versus not the best of names. Whereas on the other side, I have been nothing but impressed with Zabira Tukhugov. I mean, obviously had a long time off dealing with the suspension with the whole Khabib's crew and Conor's crew having issue and stuff like that. So he didn't fight for a while until that all finally got figured out. And then he came in like a hurricane and finished his opponent in the first round. Been nothing but impressed with him. And I'm going to go with Mikey Gills for more info on that. There's more information on this one, but I want to give the real Mike a chance to break it down before we get to that point. So first, we're going to go to Mikey Gills talking about Hakeem. I'm going to go with the first name, and Zabira.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you guys. I think that Tukagov is going to win this fight. One of the guys who jumped Connor, which I think he was actually one of the guy who got punched by Connor in that process, though. So has to work on his defense if he's going to fight Aqib. It's just throwing that one out there. But Hakeem Dawodu, 11-1, 7 knockouts, is a finisher with a 72-inch reach, going off for 8,000 on DraftKings. He's won his last 4 straight, 4-1 overall in the UFC. He's going to try to do the same thing every fight. He's going to go out there, try to keep it standing and slug. Tukagov, a teammate of Khabib, but he also likes to stand. He likes to get out there and mix it up. 4-1-1 in the UFC, 50% takedown accuracy. So if he needs it, he can have it in his back pocket. But I don't know. For me, Tukagov, I think you guys have a much stronger feeling on this one. And I think if you guys want to go for it, go for it. For $8,200, though, I think Tukagov's going to find his way in our lineup.
Yeah, man. On this fight, Mr. Dudu versus Tukov, I just don't think that he's caliber, UFC caliber, or Middle Eastern caliber fighter that they put there to highlight. I think that Tukov is master combat of sambo. He's super good cardio. He's definitely not scared, like you mentioned when he was trying to get hands on Connor and them. I like that type of dude that would jump the gate and for me and have my back so fast. It takes a true type of animal to do something of that sort. I think that Mr. Dudu is going to get taken down, rinse, cycle, and repeat it, and it should be an easy decision win if my dude can strangle him to death or beat him into submission. So we're going to be doubling up a bet on Mr. Tukov on this one. And what are the odds at, Bob?
Currently -120.
So at the gift of the current odds of -120, we're going to be putting 2.4 units on Tukov to finish Mr. Dudu and put him down the drain.
And that I've seconded on all that. And obviously a lot of the ones that me and Real Mike have a strong feeling on, especially if we're both on that one, then we tend to double up to count as, well, it's still a singular bet, but we would both have bet him independently. Like he brought up to me this was going to be his bet, and I was just like, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. So those situations where that happens. Next up, Sijara Eubanks is trying to have the fastest turnaround of her career, as far as I could tell. Ketlin Vieira is -170 versus Sijara Eubanks, +150. Obviously, Eubanks was one of the biggest underdogs on the card that she fought just a few weeks ago and was able to pull it off. And she's trying to get 2 paychecks in a month. I don't think it's happening here. I think that these odds are more indicative of the fact that she was able to pull off the upset than her general skill. I think Vieira is much better than her. Obviously, this is kind of a rough situation for Vieira. She's coming off that loss to Aldana. I mean, although one thing I do appreciate is she's had a good amount of time off from getting finished in that first round there. About 10 months now, which is closer to the year. I mean, obviously she was supposed to have some fights that got canceled, which is good for her. Getting finished like that, especially your first finish, to take that time off to let the brain heal. She's beaten plenty of better fighters than Eubanks, people that are better at Eubanks' game than Eubanks, and now she's fighting Eubanks. So I think this is a lesser version of even 2017 Sarah McMahon. So I think that Vieira should go to get a decision here, clear decision, as not all women fights tend to be. They're at 35. I don't see a finish, but I like Vieira here, but wouldn't bet because I said earlier on the card that there's fighters that I perpetually downplay. Ibrahimov is one of them, and also Sijara Eubanks is one of them. I believe I talked about that on the last fight card that she was on how much I do that. So my pick is Vieira, but nothing else is stronger than that. So Real Mike, Vieira versus Eubanks.
Yeah, I mean, this one's going to be a real hard one for Sarge, in my opinion. I think that Ketlin Vieira is pretty much a very similar fighter to Sarge. Sarge uses her size and her strength usually to kind of bully around the smaller opponent. But this time, Caitlin Vieira is going to be taller and about the same size and thickness, and so I think she's going to have a major resistance and end up having major problems versus Caitlin Vieira. I think it's an absolute gift for her to fight Sarge after an Aldana, because I've been high on Aldana since the beginning. I've always talked about how great her boxing is and her defense as well as a lady. And so it was no surprise that Caitlin Vieira got caught by such a great striker. It can happen, and you learn a lesson. But Sarge is not that great of a striker. She's got about a 80-second gas, kind of like Nico Price did last week. And I just don't think that she's going to have what it takes to beat Vieira. So I think Vieira wins this pretty easily.
Just kind of dovetailing off something that you guys just said a second ago. You talked about the height advantage. She's got 4 inches on her and already a naturally better striker. The inactivity, like Bob was talking about, it's not just the inactivity on Vieira's side that bothers me a little bit. She got knocked out last December, but before that, it had been since March 2018, before her last fight was Kat Zingano. But that's really kind of where my worry ends with her. I said the wrong thing first. The height advantage is a good one. Much better striker from the outside, going up against Sijara Eubanks. Really, the only thing that I can come up with for Sijara is that momentum is a real thing in sports. I certainly think she's going to lose this fight. She doesn't really have a path to victory that I can see. She's got another serious issue that I see is trying to cut weight 2 times for her in, what was her last fight? It was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
So a girl like her who's had like weight cutting issues in the past, trying to cut it twice in 1 week, man, I don't know about that. That's just another little like drop in the bucket of why I'm not going to pick her. I think Vieira, $8,800 on DraftKings. I think you can spend that money better, because like you guys said, I don't really see a finish in this one either. I see it being a 3-round point fest. Maybe Sijara Eubanks tries to take her down, but I mean, like you mentioned with McMahon, like Vieira took her down and submitted her, and I just don't see where Eubanks has any path to victory in this fight. So for me, it's Vieira at 8,800. Eubanks, not one of my favorite dog plays, really not one of them at all. So kind of a stay away from me. So yeah, Vieira at 8,800.
Next up, we have a much more interesting fight. This is probably actually, it kind of lines up pretty great, given it like the top 3 fights I'm most excited for. Kai Kara France minus 235 versus Brendan Royval plus 195. I've been utterly impressed with Kai Kara France. I mean, other than when he fought Moreno. I mean, he fought well against Moreno, but we were, this is before Mike Gills was on the show, but me and Real Mike, we were really high on Moreno going into all of that, especially with how well he looked against Askar Askarov, and just was very impressed by Kai Kara France, both in that fight and beyond. I really like him here. One of the things about Brandon Royval, these odds are indicative of his win over Tim Elliott, and I'm trying to turn a new leaf and not completely dump on fighters. And Tim Elliott used to be my guy at 125. I thought he was the dark horse to do well, especially if DJ was ever out of flyweight. And he's always put himself in dangerous positions to get subbed, but he's always been able to fight out of them. That's happening less and less. He just likes to throw himself in dangerous situations to eventually advance position. That's not happening anymore. And Brandon Royval caught him. He was a big underdog and he did well. And I think these odds are showing that maybe he can do it again, plus 185. Because if that fight didn't happen, he would be a plus 400 here easy. I think Kai Kara France is just going to do unspeakable things to this man over the course of 3 rounds. I really like Kara France here. Sorry, there's the hyphen, so that's the full last name there. But again, this was one of the ones that I saw going into this. I'm like, man, everyone's going to like Brendan Royval. I'm going to get Kai Kara France. Like this, I like minus 150. This is going to be awesome. And way off. Apparently, I'm really bad at guessing openers, and this is an example of that. So pick is Kai Kara France. Mikey Gills, talk to me about these flyweights.
All right, I'll start off with Kai Kara France, 21-8, 10 knockouts, 3 submissions, 5'4", 66.5-inch reach, coming off that win over Tyson Nam. He's 4-1 since coming to the UFC. In this fight, he definitely has the striking advantage, definitely does not have the grappling advantage. He's only a blue belt. He's got 2 submission losses in his career, but none of them since 2014. It was decision 2 fights ago by Brandon Moreno. That was like an absolute war, though. It was so fun. going up against Brandon Royval, 11-4, 3 knockouts, 7 subs. Former LFA champ, he's won 3 straight, including the one over Tim Elliott that you were just talking about. All three of those were by submission. His only loss in his last 7 fights was a late notice replacement fight. He went against Casey Kennedy. The one thing that I like about Royval in this fight, I was listening to an interview with him. He is training now for the first time ever since he got that bonus money, training for the first time as a full-time fighter down at Factory X. So I'm excited to see like if he's going to make any kind of leaps now that he's not like, I don't know, slinging pizzas or, whatever else he was doing on the side. But, this guy's a true finisher, man. All but one of his wins have come by finish. He's not afraid when you see him mix up in striking. He throws a lot of wild stuff, and he sort of uses that. Like you see a lot of it in LFA. He would use his wild striking to try to draw people in to get it to the ground. And once he's on there, he will snatch up anything in a heartbeat. I'm picking Kai Kara France in this fight at 8,900 on DraftKings. But Royval, man, he's one of my favorite dogs just because if he does get a hold of anything out there, he's going to try to pull a submission for it. And I've seen Kai Kara France tire out late in fights before. And if he does that, he could be in trouble. So, Royval fighter on the rise. I like his chances for 7,300. You could do a lot worse on this card. And I think at the very least, he could take this to a decision and maybe get a couple of grappling points.
Yeah, this one is gonna be a great fight. I like Royval's submissions game. I like his scrambles and the ability on the ground. I like Kai Kara's smart defense and his striking ability, standing. He's a great point fighter. If Royval had a little bit better striking that was more sound, I would pick him to win. I can't, other than I would maybe put down some money on a sub prop for Royval, just to have some shits and giggles. But I think that most likely Kai Kara France, he's got a little bit more experience in the octagon. It's just it ends up paying dividends. I think he'll win a decision pretty easily. But don't count out Royval's submission games. And if he gets him down on the ground, it's going to be a problem. But I just don't trust his striking. I don't know if he can take the leg kicks, if he can take the full game. So we'll find out. We'll find out real shortly. But if you like Royval at all, I would just bet him on submission.
In the co-main event, yes, we're finally here, actually. For all those of you watching live, if you wouldn't mind, turn off my camera. I'm about to turn my camera back on. There we go. Sorry. We get this lag sometimes with my video, and occasionally I just have to turn it off and come back. I wasn't leaving you.
Right.
I'm back. Grown-ups come back to you. If you have kids and watch Daniel Tiger, there you go. In the co-main event, Dominic Reyes is my 275 favorite first. Janny from the block, Blockowitz, plus 235. Yes, we love Jan Blockowitz here. He's made us a lot of money in the past. Absolutely. And yes, if you are seeing any amount of Twitter, I will post every single GIF I could find from Jennifer Lopez for Jenny on the block, because that's what I like to call Jan Blockowitz. And that will keep coming. But you know what? Hate to break it to you, that does not mean I'm picking Jan Blockowitz. Obviously, he's got that Polish power and everything else that he's talking about. But I think Dom Ruiz can take the power. A lot of Jan Blachwitz's wins have come against failed light heavyweight experiments from lifetime middleweights that in the latter half of their career have decided to shoot up and can't hang. Chris Weidman was on his way out. No, sorry. That was Dominic Reyes. Either way, I'm trying to mix him up. Sorry. Luke Rockhold, the slowest he has ever looked. Not throwing out punches, just trying to go for power and getting knocked out. I actually thought that Jacare beat Blachowicz in that terrible, horrifically boring 5-round fight. And the skill just still isn't there. I mean, Jan Blachowicz is still the guy that got finished by Thiago Santos. He's still the guy that got wrestle decision by Patrick Cummins. I mean, he has shortened up a lot of things, but he's still that guy. Whereas Dominic Reyes has looked utterly phenomenal. And I know I've downplayed Dominic Reyes a little bit in a few spots. I believe it was the Ozdemir fight. Yeah, the Ozdemir fight. I actually thought Ozdemir won, but I was very impressed with him against John Jones. I'm one of the few. I actually did score that fight for John Jones. Sorry, Dominic Reyes. I know it's the popular thing that Dominic Reyes won that fight, but I think a lot of that was, how well he did against Jones. A little bias there on the decision making, but either way, skill for skill, I think he's better here. He's longer, he's faster, he's more athletic. He's entering into his prime. I mean, Jan Blachowicz is like, he's that aged fighter that, like, there's this can't remember who posted it. At one point they had this bell curve, two bell curves over each other, one of which was the gaining of experience and one of which was prime and skill. And he's just at that point where, like, the prime and age wise is starting to deter, but just that sheer experience is so high that he's going to be able to out veteran so many people. I don't think that's going to happen here against Reyes, but obviously minus 275 is a huge, huge price tag for Dominic Reyes. And I just know if I find a way to bet Reyes that Jan Blachowicz is just going to throw that one shot in a fight that he's losing and get a finish. But I'm going to pick Reyes. But you know what? For just sheer chaos purposes, I would be utterly just tickled pink if Jan Blachowicz gets a title and can walk around with it. So pick his Reyes, but hopeful for Yanni from the block there. So I'm going to throw that to Real Mike for the Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz co-main event.
Oh man, well, this is going to be a treat for us here. I'm a big fan of Reyes. I like his length. He's real young. I think he learned a ton in that John Jones fight. I think he's got the length and the reach to kind of keep Jan at bay and just kind of put on a little clinic on him. I think that Reyes should win this fight, but you can never count Jan on the block out because, as you know, he count him out and he comes through. So I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm actually a fan of both these ones. I don't like even having to pick it, but I think that Reyes is going to win.
This fight is, for me, one of the more important fights in recent years. And when you think about the fight, I am one of the people that scored it for Reyes. It was a very close fight. I admit that. It could have gone either way. I understand that. But when you think about John Jones leaving the division, this is sort of like in boxing in the 80s. When you think about when, like, Muhammad Ali is going away and then Larry Holmes comes in. Larry Holmes is a great fighter, but he never got to beat that prime Ali. And Larry Holmes never really got that respect in the boxing world. Like, maybe later on in time he did, but not when he was actually doing his thing. Reyes has a chance, because a lot of people do think that he beat John Jones. He has a chance to establish himself as the actual legit champion in this division, that's something that Jan Blachowicz, that he can't do. I mean, I don't think Blachowicz is going to win this fight, but if he does, that's a devastating blow to the division, because you can make a case that Reyes is the legit champion. You're going to be really hard pressed to find somebody to make the case that Blachowicz is. And for me, like, just as a fan, I want that Reyes win just so I can say, like, yeah, that's the guy. And then you get, like, guys like Rakic or Santos or anybody else. Like, I don't want to mention his name again, but Johnny Walker, like anybody that's working their way up the ranks, give those guys a chance to fight the guy that's going to be the real champion. You know, like, that's why I'm actually really pulling for Reyes in this fight. Not just because I'm going to bet on him in DraftKings, but, like, I really, as a fan, want him to win. And
yeah, please, God, give Johnny Walker to Reyes next. I would love that. Hey, just give me dog. Give me close odds too. I would love that one too.
That's just mean. That's uncalled for.
But no, just getting to the how. I just think he's a slicker striker. And one thing that we haven't even brought up on the show yet is the Abu Dhabi. They're using the bigger cage. I think that really favors Dominic Reyes. And I think when you get in there, he's going to be much slicker. He's going to be much faster. He can keep him in range with kicks. And I just think for $9,000, especially on DraftKings, just the legacy and for my wallet, Dominic Reyes, let's go. Blachowicz is 7,200. Just not for me. I don't think he's got much of a chance in this fight. So Dominic Reyes, save the division. Do it for the fans. Dominic Reyes, let's go.
Let's go.
Well, then of the eventual rematch with John Jones, whether it be at light heavyweight or heavyweight down the line, we'll be definitely going if Reyes can keep it going. And a lot more competitive fights if he wins at the championship levels, which will be more entertaining as well. In the main event, well, technically, I mean, Israel Adesanya might go up to 205 at some point. So Reyes Adesanya I'd be down for. I guess that's if he gets past this fight. So I guess I showed my cards real fast. But Israel Adesanya is minus 170 versus Paulo Costa plus 150. Literally just before this show, because I thought I was misremembering it, I rewatched Romero versus Costa just to make sure that was all up to date on me here. And there's a bunch of people out there that think Costa has somehow this phenomenal gas tank. and he's going to be there for 5, and he's going to be throwing heat for 5 and just be doing amazing for 5. Don't see it happening. And everyone also is playing off on that he won that fight. Okay, I squared that fight for Romero. Granted, Yoel Romero homer here. So that's all I'm willing to say that. But the reason that fight is so entertaining has nothing to do with this fight. Obviously, yes, Romero is a bit of a counter striker, but he's the same time counter striker, and he's willing to mix in, and he will go after you to do the counter. Whereas the reason the Romero and Adesanya fight was so awful is because they were both waiting for the other guy to engage. Adesanya is not like, he wasn't going to risk jumping in and getting that crazy 3rd round out of nowhere flying knee from Yoel Romero to put him out. He was taking his time to point and win the fight. And he is a fantastic counter striker, and he has great lateral movement. Costa is still a straightforward power striker that's going to come for you. And over the course of the 5, Adesanya is just going to add up strikes and add up strikes and add up strikes. And at some point in the latter rounds, I do think combination of being tired and just the sheer volume, at some point Costa is going to come hard enough into a shot that's going to put him out. Personal opinion there. So I think Adesanya's going to win. I think he's going to get a finish in the later rounds. Could Costa get a finish early on when he lands something? I mean, he's not a one-shot guy, but like, he puts enough volume on you in the first like 1 to 3 rounds that he usually puts you out of there. So there's a chance. So this is why I have no bet on this fight. It's a little steep for that chance possibility, but in terms of a pick and a prediction, I'm going Adesanya 4th round TKO. And with that, I'm going to go over to Mikey Gills. I think I got that time right. For the main event, Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa.
Well, you guys know how I'm coming at this is just strictly from a DraftKings perspective, and this fight just has points written all over it. I'm going to read a couple scores to you guys real quick. This is Israel Adesanya scores 110 against Whitaker, 124.5 against Gastelum, and 126 against Brunson. He's got a couple of low scores in there against Romero and Silva. I don't think Costa's going to let him have that type of fight. On the other side, this is Costa's last 5 DraftKings points: 99, 117.5, 104.5, 91.5, and 111. Let's go. All right, so I'm picking Israel Adesanya to win the fight. I mean, for anything, you guys are going to cover all the whys and hows, and that's fine. I'm just going to go straight DraftKings right now. If you're doing a straight up cash game, I would consider a stack here. For 7,700, Costa, you're looking at, he's got a chance to land a lot of strikes as an underdog. If this thing goes into the later rounds, even if he gets finished in like the 4th, he could still land a whole lot. And we just talked about Nico Price earlier, scored 75 points, landing 150 significant strikes. If Costa can land anything close to that over the course of 5 rounds, ooh, dude, that's $7,700. Let's go. Now, if you're doing a tournament play, I don't suggest stacking. That's like the stacking process of putting the same fighters from the same fight. Just do that against your friends. You're not going to win a tournament on that. But if you're doing a tournament, you might get, don't stack them. You're not going to get like a Zhang Jacek or a DC Cormier too. But for a tournament play, Israel Adesanya at, what is he going off at? $8,500. Israel Adesanya is going off at $8,500. That's a gift. Look at 110, 124, and 126 points all day. He's in our lineup. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Israel Adesanya is the best striker to ever step foot in the octagon. I don't care what anybody says. The guy's the most decorated, most skilled kickboxer. He's so ridiculous, man. He's literally like a movie character or something out of a comic book. The dude's super exciting. His defense is more impressive than his offense, and I think that's where people don't understand, and that's why he's willing to fight the bull in this matchup. He's done it many, many times in his career. Costa's big, beautiful, looks like he's on steroids. I don't know. Seems like he doesn't get tested or something. Yeah, looks. I can't say he is, but man, I've seen a lot of steroids in my life. But either way, dude's jacked, got a body on him. He's gonna come with some mean power. But I just think that Adesanya is way too skilled, man. He's just way too smart. I just don't see him giving any openings to Costa. I also think that Adesanya has another gear that he's never even shown us in the UFC. I think that he's got way more finishing capabilities than he shows. A lot of times he likes to play games and take his opponent 5 rounds or fully, or he does whatever he wants to do with them. I say he does whatever he wants to do with Costa. With the fluke chance, obviously the Costa cleans his clock, but 5-round fight. This is Adesanya's fight to win, to cement his legacy even more. I think that he's the greatest striker that I've seen in the UFC.
Well, I want to quickly jump off that point and second something that Mike just said, talking about he thinks Adesanya has another gear. I think, and we know that Adesanya has another gear, and Kelvin Gastelum was able to bring that out by going at him, and I think that Costa can bring that out of him by going at him. And once you bring that out of Izzy, I think you can get a virtuoso performance. Like I really think this could just be utterly, it could be beautiful. So okay, so as a review, the bet for this one is Zubaira Tukhugov at -120 to win 2 units. So that's 2.4 units on the -120 to win you guys 2. And now, Mike Gills, can you give us our tentative DraftKings? Obviously, yes, keep track of everything. And one thing I very much appreciate that Mike Gills did this last time out, and he'll probably do that going forward, is not only does he give you guys what our lineup is, he gives you justifications for it. So you could learn as well as you're listening in and starting to follow his rubric of DraftKings. So, Mikey Gills, what you got for us?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify one thing that I just went over. I had mentioned something about stacking a card. If you've never played before and you wanted to, the idea of a stack is having the winner, having both opponents in your same 6-fight slate. I only recommend that very rarely, and only if you're playing in smaller games against your friends. You can have a high floor with a Costa. Like let's say Costa loses, right? You can have a high floor with him where he might score you like 50, 60 points in a war. But if you go into those big, huge tournaments where you're trying to win a lot of money, you're pretty much guaranteeing, because you need 6 winners to win those tournaments. You're guaranteeing that you're not going to win that tournament. So if you're a lower game stack tournament, don't stack anything like that. But getting right into our game right now, we're going to start off with Israel Adesanya at $8,500. Just like I said, I think it's basically the best bargain on the whole card. I think this fight's going to be a war, and he's going to win. He's going to score huge on DraftKings in this fight. Then we're going to go with Juan Espino. $9,100. Even with this layoff, I trust him to get the submission against Jeff Hughes. I feel like Jeff Hughes is overmatched, and he's being brought in there just to lose. From there, we're going Dominic Reyes, $9,000. He's got 5 rounds to score points or get a finish, and I think in either one of those scenarios, he's going to pay off for us great. Then you got your guy, Tukhugov. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that. Tukhugov? How do you guys go with that?
I go Tukhugov, or I like the first name because
Zubaira?
Yeah, because it's like Elvira, but like
All right, so we're just go with that. Zubaira, $8,200. This pick is just going for this is our lowest price guy that I'm just picking as a straight up winner. I'm hoping that he can go for some kind of finish, but even if it's a decision, he ends up getting us 80, 85 points at $8,200. I'll take that, and I'm hoping for a lot better than that. From there, we're going with William Knight, our first underdog on the card. Hard to say no to that kind of power, especially against a guy who leaves himself open for counters as much as God, I can't think of his name. Somebody help me out here. Kamer, sorry. Yeah, like I said, $7,600, the type of power that this guy brings in, his finishing rate, it's insane. From there, we're going with Brandon Royval, $7,300, our biggest underdog on the card. He was the best of all the lowest price guys that I think has a realistic path to victory. I think he has a chance to get to the ground and lock in a submission. And for $7,300, I think he's good to go. But if you wanted another guy that we were just talking about, the reason that this card isn't official yet is because I think Ludovit Klein is going to be, just watching his tape. If he comes in at anything close to a good price, I'm going to find a way to put him onto this card somehow. So look out for Klein. Keep following us at MMA for Money Show. I'm at Mikey Gills with a Z. Keep following me. We'll update this lineup throughout the week as soon as his price goes out. But once again, just going over the card: Israel Adesanya, Juan Espino, Dominic Reyes, Zubaira Tukhugov, William Knight, and Brandon Royval. That leaves you with $300 left to play. If you don't like one of those cards and you want to get somebody else, you have $300 extra to play it. But I think it's a good card regardless.
Now, that was the show. You got the bets. You got the DraftKings. Real Mike, do you have anything to say to the people before we bid adieu?
We just can't thank you guys enough for following, liking, tweeting, all the interaction that you guys do. Sorry for the little technical difficulties that we had today. Sometimes it just does not listen. So thank you for bearing through with us in the little late start time, and let's roll.
Mikey Gills, our resident water champ. I got anything to say to the people?
I'm out right now. I got nothing. My mouth's gonna dry up. Let's go. Ravens versus Chiefs Monday night. Let's go.
There you go. Well, we will be back next week to preview UFC Fight Night, home versus Aldana. Yes, that is a blockbuster. Sorry, that was mean. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your platform of choice: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Yeah, Spotify. We're like Joe Rogan, kind of, but not really. But no,
Just
Google
don't get paid
Podcasts,
as much.
Overcast, Podcast, RSS feed. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're also on YouTube. Subscribe to the show, please. Comment, share, and also let us know, whether it be DMs or whatever, to any one of us three on something you liked about the show, something you want added to the show. We always talk about it leading into the show to try to make it better for you guys. Always willing to change for you guys. Willing to change for you. Will your spouse do that? Will your significant other do that? We'll change for you. Little far. Like, comment, and share to spread the word. And with that, let's roll.